An elderly man stands trembling in front of Judge Caprio's bench. His shoulders are slightly hunched, his uniform cap frayed from years of wear, and his eyes uncertain, darting between the citation in his shaking hands and the quiet courtroom around him. The bailiff's voice still echoes. Case 18427, Arthur Miller, failure to yield. But Arthur doesn't seem to understand what's happening. He isn't defiant, he's lost. No attorney stands beside him. No family member offers support. Just a 73-year-old Iraq War veteran, alone and confused, trying to explain why a simple traffic stop has brought him here. The room is silent except for the soft scrape of his walker against the floor. Judge Caprio studies the file in front of him, reading the officer's notes. Driver appeared disoriented, mentioned medical treatment for head injury. Then his eyes lift to Arthur. There's something in the man's voice, a tremor of fear mixed with pride. It's the sound of someone who's faced far worse than traffic court but still feels small under its rules. And in that instant the courtroom shifts. The judge sets the file aside, leans forward slightly and says something no one expects to hear in a courtroom. Mr. Miller, I think you deserve more than just a hearing today. What happens next will become one of the most emotional moments ever seen inside Judge Caprio's courtroom, because before this hearing is over, he'll do something no other judge has done. He'll pick up the phone, call his own son and change one veteran's life forever. Stay until the end of this story, it will remind you why compassion still matters in justice. Subscribe to Real Judge Stories and comment your city below if you believe kindness belongs in every courtroom. Every courtroom has its rules, but this one is about to test the boundaries of what justice really means. Before we see what Judge Caprio does next, take a moment to imagine being in Arthur Miller's shoes, confused, alone, holding a ticket you can barely read, while memories of combat still echo in your mind. What happens in the next few minutes isn't about laws or fines. It's about humanity, dignity, and one decision that restores both. Stay with us, because before this hearing ends you'll witness compassion rewrite the rules. Subscribe to Real Judge Stories for moments that prove justice still has a heart. The clock above the bench reads 10:15 a.m. The morning docket has been steady, routine citations, parking disputes, a few impatient drivers, but when the bailiff calls Case 18427, Arthur Miller, the rhythm changes. Arthur rises slowly from the back row, one hand gripping the edge of the pew, the other steadying his metal walker. Each step toward the podium echoes faintly on the tile floor. His jacket, a light tan windbreaker, hangs loosely on his thin frame. The patch on his cap reads Iraq Veteran Combat Engineer. Judge Caprio watches quietly as Arthur makes his way forward. Even before a word is spoken, the judge notices everything. The careful effort not to stumble, the nervous tightening of Arthur's jaw, the folded piece of paper trembling between his fingers. "Good morning, sir," Judge Caprio says gently. Arthur clears his throat. "Good morning, Your Honor." His voice wavers like an old radio signal. "You're here on a charge of failure to yield at an intersection on Elm and Park, correct?" Arthur nods but glances down at the citation as if it might explain itself. "Yes, sir. I thought I did stop. Maybe I didn't see the sign right." There's no hostility in his tone, only confusion. The judge studies the officer's report again, then glances at the gallery. Everyone's watching, sensing something different in this man's unease. "Are you here by yourself today, Mr. Miller?" Caprio asked. Arthur hesitates. "Yes, sir. My wife passed a few years ago. My daughter's in Arizona. I didn't want to bother her with this." The courtroom falls silent. It's a small case on paper, but the air feels heavy, like something larger is unfolding. Judge Caprio leans back slightly, pen resting on the file. "All right, Mr. Miller. Let's take this one step at a time." Arthur shifts nervously behind the podium as Judge Caprio glances again at the citation. The file is thin, a single-page ticket with the officer's notes scribbled in the margin, but the details stand out. Failure to yield. Vehicle hesitated mid-intersection. Driver appeared confused. The last line catches the judge's eye. Driver mentioned past head injury, advised to follow up with physician. Caprio sets the file down. "Mr. Miller, could you tell me what happened that morning?" Arthur frowns, the effort of remembering visible on his face. "Yes, sir. I was driving to the pharmacy. There was a truck ahead of me. It made a wide turn and I waited. Then someone honked. I looked both ways, saw it was clear and started moving again. But then an officer pulled me over. His hands tightened on the walker. He said I failed to yield. I didn't mean to, Your Honor. Sometimes I get a little mixed up when there's too much noise." Caprio's tone softens. "Do you have any medical conditions that affect your driving?" Arthur nods slowly. I served 2 tours in Iraq. Got caught in a blast outside Fallujah. Head injury. The doctors call it TBI, traumatic brain injury. I also have PTSD. Loud sounds, sir, they make my head spin. The truck that honked behind me, it startled me. I froze for a second. The gallery stirs quietly. A few people exchange glances. The mood in the room shifts from curiosity to sympathy. Arthur swallows hard. I didn't come here for pity, Judge. I just wanted to explain. I can pay the fine if I need to. I didn't mean to do wrong. Caprio folds his hands. Mr. Miller, no one here thinks you meant to do wrong. His voice is calm, steady. You've served your country, and now the least this court can do is serve you fairly. Arthur nods, unsure how to respond. The judge pauses, thinking, the weight of responsibility visible in his eyes. Something deeper than traffic law is at stake, and the courtroom can feel it. For a long moment, Judge Caprio doesn't speak. He studies Arthur Miller, the way the older man's shoulders dip slightly under invisible weight, the faint tremor in his hands, the sincerity behind every hesitant word. This isn't defiance, it's confusion wrapped in dignity. Caprio looks again at the officer's notes. One sentence stands out. Driver appeared disoriented, mentioned veteran status and medical issues related to prior service. Beneath it, a line scribbled hastily, possible PTSD episode triggered by loud noise. The judge exhales slowly. He's handled thousands of cases, reckless drivers, unpaid tickets, careless mistakes, but this one feels different. There's something deeply human here, something that doesn't belong in a standard traffic hearing. Mr. Miller, he says quietly, do you receive treatment for your injury? Yes, sir, Arthur replies. The VA clinic. They've been good to me. I take medication, but sometimes, my mind just doesn't keep up. Caprio nods, absorbing the words. And you came here alone today? Arthur nods again. Yes, Your Honor. My daughter's busy and I figured it's just a ticket. I didn't want to trouble anyone. The judge glances toward the gallery. No one moves. The courtroom has gone still, sensing that something meaningful is happening. Caprio leans back slightly in his chair, tapping his pen thoughtfully against the bench. Mr. Miller, I don't think this is just a ticket. I think this is a case where understanding matters more than penalty. He pauses, almost to himself. And I think you deserve someone to stand beside you. The clerk looks up, confused. Judges don't usually speak like this in open court. But Caprio's expression is already changing. Focused, resolute. He reaches for the phone on his desk, the kind of deliberate motion that tells everyone in the room something unusual is about to happen. Judge Caprio lifts the receiver from the bench phone, his calm demeanor unchanged, but the room senses the shift. The courtroom staff exchange quick glances. No one can recall the last time the judge made a personal call in the middle of proceedings. He dials a number from memory, pressing each button slowly, his eyes never leaving Arthur Miller. The ringing echoes faintly through the hushed courtroom. Then, David? It's Dad. His voice softens but carries authority. Are you at your office right now? Pause. Good. I need you to come to the courthouse immediately. I've got a veteran here, elderly gentleman, served in Iraq, struggling to understand the citation. He's here alone and could use proper representation. Another pause. Caprio nods once, smiling slightly. 20 minutes? Perfect. Courtroom 3. Thank you, son. He sets the phone down carefully. The room remains silent, caught between confusion and awe. Even the bailiff hesitates before speaking. Your Honor, was that your... My son, Caprio replies, his tone steady. He's an attorney here in Providence. I just asked him to represent Mr. Miller. Pro bono. Arthur blinks, unsure if he's heard correctly. Your son? For me? Yes, Mr. Miller, Caprio says gently. You fought for all of us. The least we can do is fight for you. The courtroom breathes out all at once, astonished, moved. The judge glances toward the door. We'll recess for 20 minutes. Let's give my son time to get here. 20 minutes later, the heavy wooden doors at the back of the courtroom open with a soft creak. A man in his 40s steps inside, tall, confident, dressed in a charcoal suit. The subtle resemblance between him and the judge is unmistakable. The same calm eyes, the same measured poise. The bailiff straightens. Attorney Caprio? David nods politely. Yes, sir. He moves forward, briefcase in hand, and immediately spots Arthur sitting in the front row. The older man looks nervous, his hands twisting the brim of his cap. David offers a warm smile and extends his hand. Mr. Miller, I'm David Caprio. My father called and asked me to represent you today. May I sit with you for a moment? Arthur hesitates before nodding. Of course. But I can't afford an attorney, sir. David pulls out a chair beside him. You don't have to. My father said you served this country. That's payment enough. Arthur's eyes glisten. He looks down, trying to steady his voice. That's very kind of you. I didn't expect any of this. David opens the file, scanning the citation. Let's go over everything together, all right? Just tell me exactly what happened that day. For the next several minutes, the two men speak quietly. David listens intently, asking short, precise questions. What time it was, how busy the road had been, what sounds he remembered hearing. Arthur answers carefully, pausing when memory falters. When they finish, David closes the file. Thank you, Mr. Miller. You did nothing wrong. You just need someone to explain that properly. He stands, straightens his tie, and glances toward the bench where his father sits waiting. The softest trace of pride flickers in the judge's eyes. All right, David says calmly. Let's make this right. The courtroom settles again as Judge Caprio retakes his seat. David and Arthur stand at the defense table. The air feels different now, charged with quiet anticipation. Judge Caprio clears his throat. Mr. Caprio, he says formally, though a faint smile touches his voice, you may proceed. David nods respectfully. Thank you, Your Honor. He steps forward, his tone measured but firm. This court should be aware of several facts concerning Mr. Miller's case. First, his military record. Mr. Miller served 2 tours in Iraq as a combat engineer. His duties involved identifying and dismantling improvised explosive devices, arguably one of the most dangerous assignments a soldier can undertake. He pauses, letting that sink in. The audience shifts, even the bailiff straightens a little. Second, Mr. Miller sustained a traumatic brain injury in 2005 during an IED explosion outside Fallujah. He was hospitalized for several weeks and continues to receive treatment for PTSD and related memory complications. These are not excuses, Your Honor, they are documented medical facts. David opens a folder and holds up a few pages. I have here his VA medical summary, detailing his current condition, and a note from his neurologist explaining that stress and sudden noises can trigger temporary disorientation. He places the documents before the judge. Third, and perhaps most importantly, eyewitness statements from the intersection confirmed that Mr. Miller did, in fact, come to a complete stop. However, a delivery truck nearby backfired loudly. The sound startled him, an involuntary trauma response consistent with PTSD. He hesitated for several seconds before moving again. The officer interpreted this as a failure to yield. Arthur looks down, jaw trembling slightly, tears welling in his eyes. David's voice softens. Your Honor, Mr. Miller's hesitation was not negligence. It was the echo of a battlefield moment that has never truly ended for him. Punishing him for that would not be justice, it would be cruelty. The gallery is completely silent now. Even those waiting for their own hearings seem frozen, drawn into the story unfolding before them. David continues, my client has driven for more than 50 years with only one prior citation. He's careful, conscientious, and aware of his limitations. He lives on a fixed income of veterans' benefits and Social Security. A fine or insurance increase would cause unnecessary hardship. What he needs is understanding, not punishment. He closes the folder gently. Therefore, I respectfully request that this citation be dismissed on medical and humanitarian grounds. Alternatively, if the court deems some action necessary, we ask for a deferred judgment contingent upon his completion of a senior driver safety course, an arrangement I am personally willing to coordinate and pay for. David steps back. Arthur grips his walker, eyes wet. The judge takes a long breath, scanning the file again, though it's clear his decision was forming the moment the testimony began. Mr. Miller, Judge Caprio says softly, would you please stand? Arthur pushes himself up with David's help. I've reviewed the officer's report, the medical documentation, and the statements your counsel has provided. What I see is not negligence. I see a man who risked his life for his country and now lives with the consequences of that sacrifice every single day. Caprio pauses, voice thick with emotion. When that truck backfired, your mind returned to a place no one should have to revisit. That's not a failure to yield, Mr. Miller, that's a scar from war. And scars deserve compassion, not condemnation. He straightens, the authority returning to his voice. Accordingly, this citation is dismissed, completely. No fine, no points, no record. Arthur exhales, trembling, unable to speak. David places a steadying hand on his shoulder. But Judge Caprio isn't finished. Furthermore, he continues, this court will order that the citation be expunged entirely as though it never existed. Mr. Miller, you have more than earned that clean slate. The gallery erupts in gentle applause. Some stand, others wipe their eyes. Even the bailiff nods approvingly. Judge Caprio glances at his son. Counselor, thank you for answering that call. David smiles faintly. Always, Dad. Always. The judge looks back to Arthur. Mr. Miller, this courtroom and this community owe you gratitude. You leave here today not as a defendant, but as a man honored for his service. The applause swells again, echoing through the chamber like a salute. The moment Judge Caprio's gavel comes down, something unspoken fills the courtroom. The formal silence of procedure gives way to warmth, relief, and awe. Arthur Miller remains at the defense table, gripping the edge for balance. His breathing is uneven, and his eyes glisten as he looks up at the judge. Thank you, Your Honor. I don't know what to say. Caprio steps down from the bench, something he rarely does during proceedings. He walks around the table and extends his hand. Then don't say anything, Mr. Miller. Just know that this courtroom sees you, and honors you. Arthur clasps the judge's hand with both of his voice trembling. You didn't just help me today, sir. You reminded me that I still matter. The gallery can't hold back. A woman near the back rises to her feet, tears streaking her face. My husband was a Marine, she says softly. He would have been proud to see this. Others nod, some clapping quietly, others simply standing in silent respect. David joins his father, resting a hand on Arthur's shoulder. Mr. Miller, David says gently, if you ever need help with anything, legal, medical, anything at all, you call me. My number's on this card. Arthur takes it with shaking hands. I don't know how to repay you. You already did, David replies. The bailiff clears his throat but doesn't speak. The hearing is over, but no one rushes to leave. For a few rare moments, justice feels less like a system, and more like a community coming together. And for Arthur Miller, that small courtroom in Providence becomes the one place where war finally gives way to peace. 6 months later, a thin white envelope arrives at the Providence Municipal Court. It's addressed simply, to Judge Caprio. The clerk places it on his desk with the morning mail. When the judge opens it, a small photograph slips out. Arthur Miller standing proudly beside a group of veterans at a local community center, the same faded cap still perched on his head. The letter inside is handwritten in careful, slightly shaky penmanship. Your Honor, that day in your courtroom changed more than my record. It changed my life. You didn't just dismiss a citation. You reminded me that I'm still part of something bigger. Since then, I've joined a veterans group that meets every week. I've made friends, received support, and even started helping other vets navigate the same challenges I once faced. Please tell your son David that I still have his card pinned to my fridge. I never had to call him, but knowing I could made all the difference. With gratitude, Arthur Miller, U.S. Army Iraq veteran. Judge Caprio folds the letter carefully and places it beside a collection of others that remind him why he does this work. For all the years and all the cases, moments like this are what stay with him, the proof that compassion is as powerful as any verdict. He glances toward the courtroom door, where another line of citizens already waits to be heard. The system keeps turning, but every now and then, one story reminds everyone why justice matters. If this moment moved you, share it with someone who believes kindness still belongs in the law. Subscribe to Real Judge Stories and comment your city below. Because sometimes, the smallest acts of compassion create the biggest change.